Admiral Kecker stood at the observation deck of the GDF Star, Weaver, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back. As he gazed down at the blue-green marble, called Earth, a smile played across his beak-like mouth, creating ripples. In his iridescent scales, these humans, with their projectile weapons and explosive devices, would soon learn the error of their ways. First Officer Remnerkar called out, not turning from the view. Bring up the latest scan of their military installation right away. Admiral Remar replied, her tentacles dancing across the holographic interface. The air before them sparkled to life with detailed images of human military bases, weapon stockpiles, and most amusingly, their vehicles. Would you look at that? Captain Zarth snorted, pointing at an image of a tank. They're still using metal projectiles and chemical propellants. How quaint. The bridge crew shared a collective laugh. Even the usually stoic Remar couldn't suppress a chirping giggle. According to our analysis, Zarlith continued, pulling up another hologram. Their most advanced weapons still rely on gunpowder, and uranium fission. They haven't even mastered basic antimatter containment. Admiral Kecker raised a scaled hand, silencing the laughter. While amusing, we shouldn't underestimate them. They did manage to detect our cloak probes last month. Pure luck. Ranner dismissed her, tentacles waving dismissively. Their primitive radar systems happen to be operating on a frequency that resonated with our cloaking field. We've since adjusted. The Admiral nodded, watching as a human aircraft carrier moved across the Pacific Ocean. Such a massive vessel burning fossil fuels, carrying primitive aircraft that still needed runways to take off. The Galactic Defense Force had moved beyond such limitations centuries ago. Bring up the specs on our standard issue pulse rifle. T-Car commanded, a sleek weapon materialized in the holographic display, its elegant lines of stark contrast to the boxy human firearms they'd observed. Now that's a proper weapons, Air said proudly. Type 7, even plasma pulse rifle powered by a MICR fusion. Admiral's arrival cell capable of firing 300 energy bolts per minute each shot, capable of vaporizing a 2M hole in reinforced steel. No recoil, no projectiles to manufacture, no supply lines to maintain. And that's just our basic infantry weapon. Remar added, should I show them our ship-mounted graviton cannons? No need. Kecker rumbled, finally turning from the viewport. We're not here to intimidate them. The Galactic Council has tasked us with helping these humans advance beyond their primitive weaponry. It's for their own good, really. The bridge crew nodded in agreement. The humans had shown remarkable potential in other areas. Their entertainment was particularly engaging, and their cuisine was becoming quite popular in the Council worlds, but their insistence on using such outdated military technology was holding them back from full membership in the galactic community. Schedule a meeting with their military leadership. Carr ordered, let's show them what real weapons can do. Maybe a few demonstrations will help them understand just how far behind they've fallen. Already done. Admiral Ranner reported they've agreed to meet us in their United Nations building tomorrow. Although she paused, her tentacles twisting in confusion, they seemed rather amused by our offer to demonstrate our superior technology. Probably in denial, Zarth suggested, you remember how the Centurions reacted when we first showed them energy weapons. 3 days of religious ceremonies before they'd even touch a pulse rifle. Admiral Kecker nodded sagely, returning his gaze to Earth. Soon these humans would understand. Soon they would set aside their archaic bullets and bombs. Soon they would embrace the energy weapons used by every other advanced civilization in the galaxy. How wrong they all were. Prepare, my diplomatic escort car commanded, and make sure to bring plenty of pulse rifles for the demonstration. Let's show these humans what they've been missing. The bridge crew hurried to comply, none of them noticing the small smile on the face of the human observation specialist displayed on their communication screen, patiently waiting to coordinate their landing details. The United Nations Assembly Hall buzzed with anticipation as Admiral Keckerstro, inflanked by his delegation Remar, kept close to his right, her tentacles twitching nervously at the sight of human security personnel with their primitive firearms. How barbaric. They weren't even powered by fusion cells. Commander Blake Rodriguez stood at the podium, his pressed, unformed and confident stance catching Kecker off guard. The Admiral had expected someone more intimidated. Instead, the human's eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Kecker, Rodriguez said, his voice carrying through the hall. We're honored to host the Galactic Defense Force's most accomplished weapon specialist. Carr's scales rippled in surprise. They weren't supposed to know that detail about him. Thank you, Commander Rodriguez. I trust you received our preliminary weapons analysis. Oh yes, Rodriguez grinned first. Contact tapping his. Data pad fascinating. Reading your Type 7 pulse rifles are particularly interesting. Tell me, have you solved the plasma containment degradation issue in high humidity environments? The Admiral's mouth fell open. Captain Zarleth dropped his ceremonial staff. What Kecker stammered. How do you know about that? Rodriguez shrugged, Rouge still smiling. Just an educated guess. Water vapor would naturally interfere with your containment. Field simple physics. Really, Remar leaned close to Car's ear. Ridge, Admiral, they shouldn't know this. Our weapon specifications are classified. Moving on, Kecker said loudly, trying to regain control of the conversation. We're here to discuss upgrading your military capabilities. Your continued use of projectile weapons is frankly embarrassing. A woman in the front row, her nameplate read Dr. Olivia Blackwood, actually laughed out loud. Embarrassing? That's an interesting perspective. Admiral, please tell us more about why we should abandon weapons platforms with proven reliability spanning centuries, because their obsolete Zarth burst-out energy weapons are clearly superior. No recoil, no ammunition, logistics, no functionality. In electromagnetic FSE conditions, Rodriguez interrupted, casually, no effectiveness against certain energy dispersing materials, no ability to operate in extreme temperature conditions without significant power. Draw. The alien delegation shifted uncomfortably. How did they know about these weaknesses? Commander Rodriguez Carr said slowly, you seem to have some unauthorized information about our capabilities. Not at all, Admiral, Rodriguez replied smoothly. We simply did our homework. Did you do yours? About us? Lieutenant Maya Chin stepped forward from the shadows, carrying what looked like an ancient human rifle. This is an M4 carbine 21st century design, still works perfectly after being submerged in mud, frozen in ice, or baked in desert heat. Can be maintained with basic tools and mechanical knowledge. Ammunition is simple to manufacture and store, but it's so basic. Remar protested. Surely you can't prefer such primitive technology over our advanced energy weapons. Advanced doesn't always mean better. Blackwood chimed in. You're offering solutions to problems we don't have while creating new problems we've already solved. Kecker felt his scales flushing blue with frustration. This wasn't how this meeting was supposed to go. These humans were meant to be awed by their superior technology, not questioning it. Perhaps a demonstration is in order, the Admiral said stiffly. We prepared a combat testing ground in your Nevada region. Surely, when you see our weapons in action, we accept, Rodriguez announced, that infuriating grin still on his face. Tomorrow at 0800, your best warriors, your best weapons against our, what did you call them? Primitive technology. Something in the commander's tone sent a shiver down Carr's spine. The humans weren't acting like any species they'd introduced to energy weapons before. Where was all the reverence? The technological inferiority complex they could exploit. Very well, Kecker said coolly. Tomorrow, then we'll show you exactly why the rest of the galaxy has moved beyond projectile weapons. As the alien delegation filed out, Ramar heard Rodriguez whisper to Chun, should we tell them about the EMP cannons? Na Chin replied with a smirk. Let them figure it out themselves. The first officer's tentacles went pale. What had they gotten themselves into? Back aboard the Star Weaver, Kecker paced the bridge. Run every scan we have on their military capabilities. Again, they know too much. They're too confident. There has to be something we're missing. Admiral Zarth suggested carefully. Perhaps we should consider postponing the demonstration until. No, Kecker snapped. We are the Galactic Defense Force. We will not be intimidated by a specie that hasn't even mastered gravity manipulation. Tomorrow we'll show them what real weapons can do. If only he knew what tomorrow would bring. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly under the morning sun. Admiral Kecker wiped his scales with a cooling cloth. He hadn't expected Earth's star to be quite so intense around him. His elite warriors from the 7th Combat Division check their energy weapons one last time. Testing ground perimeter secure. Admiral Captain Zarth reported his ceremonial armor gleaming. The humans are approaching from the south. A convoy of rugged vehicles approached, kicking up dust clouds. Not even anti-gravity transport. Kecker checked his atmospheric filters. Surely they weren't breathing all this particulate matter. Lieutenant Maya Chin stepped out of the lead, the challenge vehicle, wearing nothing more elaborate than a desert combat uniform and sunglasses. No powered armor, no personal shield fields, not even basic environmental protection. Behind her, a team of human soldiers unloaded what appeared to be an assortment of metal tubes, boxes, and handheld Weapons good morning, Admiral Chin called out. Cheerfully beautiful day for a demonstration. Isn't it indeed? Kecker replied, trying to hide his disdain. I trust you've brought your best equipment, Chin patted. An ancient-looking rifle, just the basics. Admiral Standard Infantry loadout. Nothing fancy. Remar's tentacles curled in disbelief. You can't be serious. Those belong in a museum. Oh, these old things. Chin smiled. They get the job done now. What exactly did you have in mind for this demonstration? Kecker gestured to the elaborate testing ground his engineers had constructed. Overnight holographic targets flickered in the distance, while combat drones hovered at various altitudes. 3 challenges: first precision targeting at range, then urban combat simulation, finally a direct force-on-force exercise. Sounds good, Chin nodded. Standard rules of engagement. Weku's training modes on our weapons, of course. Zarth explained condescendingly. The energy bolts will only mark targets, not vaporize them. We wouldn't want any accidents. The human soldiers behind Shun exchanged knowing looks. One of them, his name tag read Martinez, actually had to turn away to hide his laughter. Very thoughtful, Chin said. We'll use simulated rounds as well, marking targets. Only cars. Warriors lined up. They typed 7 pulse rifles, humming with barely contained power. Each one cost more than a small starship to manufacture. Each one represented the pinnacle of galactic weapons technology. The humans, by contrast, simply stood there with their projectile weapons, looking remarkably unconcerned. First challenge, Kecker announced. Proceed. Targeting your primitive bullets against our guided energy bolts. Targets will appear randomly at ranges from 100 to 1,500 meters. Points awarded for accuracy and response time accepted, Chun replied. She turned to her team. Standard fire team formation. Conserve ammo. Watch your sectors. Carl almost felt sorry for them. His warriors' weapons had target-seeking capabilities and built-in range compensation. These humans were about to learn a harsh lesson about technological superiority. Begin on my mark, the Admiral declared. He raised his hand. Watching both teams take position, the humans weren't even using targeting computers, just primitive optical scopes. And were those iron sights. 3, 2, 1 marked the air, filled with a distinctive whine of pulse rifles as his warriors opened fire. Energy bolts streaked across the desert, their targeting systems guiding them toward the holographic targets with lethal precision. Then the humans opened fire, and Catter's jaw dropped. The sharp crack of their weapons was followed almost instantly by target after target dropping. No hesitation, no random spray and pray, just methodical, precise shots, finding their marks with impossible speed. How Remar whispered, they're not even using targeting assist, something called muscle memory, one of the human observers explained helpfully. They practice a lot. The scores flashed up on a holographic display. The aliens stared in disbelief. The humans hadn't just matched them, they'd outscored them by a significant margin. Zarth declared, urban combat will be different. Your projectile weapons will be useless in close quarters. Chun just smiled, that infuriating smile again. If you say, so should we take a break? First, your warriors look a bit heated. Indeed, the alien combat team was struggling with their environmental systems. The desert heat was playing havoc with their weapon cooling systems, forcing them to vent excess energy. Between shots, no break. Cars snapped. Urban combat course. Now the testing ground shifted. Holographic buildings sprouting from the desert floor. The Admiral's engineers had outdone the demonstration themselves. It was a perfect replica of a combat zone, complete with environmental hazards and civilian markers. Remember, Chun called out to her team, they have to cool down between shots. Watch for the venting sequence. Kecker scales flashed an alarm. How did they know about that vulnerability? He turned to say something to Remar, but the first officer was staring at a strange device one of the humans had just set up. Admiral, she said slowly, is that what I think it is? Before he could answer, Chin raised her hand. Ready. When you are Admiral, by the way, you might want to activate your weapons. Electromagnetic shielding. Just a friendly suggestion. The Admiral's blood ran cold. What exactly had they gotten themselves into? The urban combat simulation began with a low hum. Cars. Warriors moved forward in perfect formation, their energy shields creating a luminescent bubble around them. Their pulse rifles were set to rapid fire mode, ready to blanket the area with sophisticated target-seeking plasma bolts. Look at them bunched up behind their shields. Martinez whispered to Chin, want me to show them? Why, that's a bad idea. Not yet, Chin replied, watching the aliens advance. Let them figure it out themselves. The human team had split up, taking cover positions throughout the mock-up city. No energy shields, no powered armor, just their archaic weapons, and what appeared to be simple metal objects clipped to their belts forward Zarth. Command and his squad show these primitives how real warriors fight. The alien team reached the first intersection. Their sensors swept the area, detecting nothing. Of course not, they were calibrated for energy signatures. And the humans were giving off none. Bang, a small metal object bounced off a building and landed in the middle of the alien formation. What is that? Primitive Zarth began flashbang. The flashbang grenade detonated, overwhelming alien sensory systems and disrupting their shield harmonics. Before they could recover, the air filled with the sharp cracks of human weapons. Training rounds splattered against armor, marking kill shots. With startling accuracy, fall back. Zarth screamed, regroup, and more metallic objects sailed through the air, these ones spewing smoke, filling the streets with an impenetrable haze. The aliens' targeting systems, designed for crystal-clear conditions, began throwing up error messages. Switch to thermal. Cars shouted from the command post, but it was too late. The humans had somehow flanked the entire alien squad. More training rounds found their marks, accompanied by the distinctive sound of human weapons. No energy wind, no charging sequence, just mechanical precision. Timeout. Reminer called this is impossible. Our sensors can't be fooled this easily. Chin emerged from cover, twirling something in her hand. Fun fact about smoke grenades: there, not just smoke, the mixture includes materials that play havoc with thermal imaging. Old tech, but it works. The alien warriors regrouped, their armor marked with dozens of simulated kill shots. Not one of them had managed to tag a human soldier. The force on force exercise will be different. Carr declared, no more hiding, pure combat power. If you insist. Chin shrugged. She turned to her team. Martinez, want to show them that thing you've been dying to demonstrate? Martinez grinned and uncovered a device that had been sitting innocently under a tarp. It looked absurdly simple, just a metal box with an antenna. Carr's eyes widened. No, you wouldn't. EMP generator, Martinez announced, cheerfully. Crude by your standards, I'm sure. Probably won't even work against your advance shielding. The alien warriors shifted nervously. Their shields would protect against electromagnetic pulses. Surely the Galactic Defense Force wouldn't overlook such a simple. Martinez flipped the switch. Every alien weapon within 50 m went dead. Shields flickered and died. Targeting systems reset themselves in an endless loop. Even their environmental controls stuttered, leaving the warriors sweltering in their now unpowered armor. See, here's the thing about energy weapons, Chun lectured, walking calmly between the disabled alien warriors. They're amazing when they work, but they need power, complex circuits in perfect conditions. Take those away. She paused to tap one of the alien pulse rifles with her primitive projectile weapon. Now they're just fancy clubs, but our shielding, Zarla stammered, was designed to stop energy attacks. Another human soldier finished. You built better and better energy shields while completely forgetting about basic electromagnetic hardening. We never forgot to proceed to demonstrate exactly why their weapons were still relevant. They functioned perfectly despite the EMP. They worked in the smoke. They operated in the dust and heat without complaint. No power cells to charge, no circuits to fry, no targeting systems to fail. Last exercise, Chen called out, live fire demonstration on those target vehicles. You brought. The aliens watched in horror as human armor-piercing rounds tore through their supposedly superior materials. The kinetic energy alone was devastating, and there wasn't an energy shield in the galaxy designed to stop good old-fashioned momentum. Newton's laws still work, Chin explained to the stunned Admiral. Force equals mass times acceleration. Our bullets might be simple, but they carry a lot of both. Impossible. Kecker whispered, your civilization only achieved space flight last century. You can't have weapons as this effective. Chun suggested, Admiral, we've been killing each other for thousands of years. We got really good at it. When you showed up with your energy weapons, we didn't see superior technology. We saw new vulnerabilities to exploit. Martinez demonstrated by taking down another target drone with his rifle. The alien observers winced at the brutal simplicity of it. Your weapons, Remar said slowly, they don't show up on our scanners. They have no energy signature to detect. They're immune to our electronic countermeasures. They're their primitive. Chin finished with a grin. Thank you. That's exactly the point. The demonstration ended with the alien warriors standing in their disabled armor, surrounded by evidence of human martial prowess. Their sophisticated weapons had been reduced to paperweights by simple electromagnetic pulses. Their advanced sensors had been blinded by smoke and dust. Their shields had proved useless against kinetic energy. I believe, Kecker said carefully, we may have been somewhat hasty in our assessment of human military technology. Don't feel bad, Admiral Chun. Consult him. Everyone makes that mistake. The revelation exactly once asked the Dominion forces, who tried to invade last year, oh wait, you can't, their energy weapons mysteriously failed, and their ship suddenly lost. Power tragic accident, the Admiral scales. Went pale. That was you, of course not, Chin replied with an innocent smile. Like you said, we're just primitives without outdated weapons. Now, shall we discuss that technology exchange program you mentioned? We're particularly interested in your shield generators. They seem to have a few vulnerabilities. We'd love to help you fix. The aliens looked at their disabled weapons, then at the humans' still functioning primitive arms, and realized a fundamental truth. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways in humanity. They had never stopped practicing the old ways. Back in the United Nations conference room, Admiral Kecker sat quietly. As Commander Rodriguez laid out the brutal truth, the Admiral scales had taken on a distinctly grayish tint, the galactic equivalent of 1,000-yard stereo weapons. Our technological marvels, Admiral Rodriguez said, spreading out the demonstration data on the conference table, but they're also fundamentally flawed. You forgot the first rule of warfare: complexity is the enemy of reliability. Dr. Blackwood stepped forward, pulling up a hologram of the Type 7 pulse rifle. Look at this beauty: microfusion cell plasma containment system, targeting computer, environmental compensation, matrix, 177,000 individual components, all of which must work perfectly for the weapon to function. An hour. Rifles, Chun added, field stripping her weapon with practiced ease. 34 moving parts, springs, pins, mechanical linkages. The same design that worked a century ago works today because physical laws don't change. Remar's tentacles twisted nervously. Our weapons are more powerful, more accurate when they work, Martinez countered. But we can drop this rifle in mud, wash it off, and keep firing. Try that with a plasma containment system. Carr looked at his own weapon, seeing it with new eyes. Our entire military doctrine, our whole strategic approach is based on perfect conditions. Rodriguez finished. You build amazing weapons, Admiral, but you never ask what happens when things go wrong in battle. Things always go wrong. The graviton cannons on our ships, Remar whispered, one EMP burst would turn them into very expensive modern art. Blackwood confirmed, don't worry, we're not planning to demonstrate that your ships are perfectly safe. The Admiral stood up, pacing the room. All these centuries we thought we were advancing, moving beyond primitive projectile weapons, but you never stopped improving them, did you? Noption said, popping the P sound. While you were building better energy weapons, we were developing better materials, better propellants, better targeting systems that don't need power to work. Sometimes the best way forward is to perfect what already works. And the other species, Qatar asked, the ones we convinced to adopt our weapons. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Might want to check on them, especially the ones near less friendly powers. Energy weapons are great for parades and demonstrations, but in real combat, no one of the Dominion fleet disappeared. Remar muttered, their weapons would have just stopped working. We tried to warn them. Chen shrugged. They called us primitives too. Admiral Kecker sank back into his chair. The full implications hitting him. The Galactic Defense Force had systematically convinced dozens of species to abandon reliable weapons for more advanced but vulnerable ones. They hadn't spread progress. They'd spread a critical weakness. The Council needs to know. He said, finally, we need to revise our entire approach to warfare. And you humans will be happy to help. Rodriguez finished. For a fair exchange of technology. Of course, those shields of yours would be great if they weren't so easy to disrupt. Maybe we could help with that. The Admiral looked at the humans around the table. Not primitives at all, but warriors who had never stopped learning, never stopped improving, never abandoned what worked just because something flashier came along. Commander Rodriguez Kecker said formally, I believe we have much to learn from each other. Yes, Rodriguez grinned. I believe we do now about those gravity generators. As a human and aliens began discussing a true exchange of military knowledge, Qatar couldn't help but appreciate the irony they had come to. Uplift a primitive species only to find they were the ones who needed updating. Sometimes the Admiral realized the best technology wasn't the newest or the most advanced. Sometimes it was the one you could trust to work when everything else failed in humanity. They had never forgotten that lesson. 1 month later, Admiral Kecker stood before the Galactic Council, his scales now bearing the new insignia of Joint Forces Commander, the first ever shared command between humans and the Galactic Defense Force. The treaty with Earth, he announced to the assembled representatives, is now complete after extensive testing and evaluation. we will be implementing what they call a hybrid doctrine. All GDF forces will maintain both energy and kinetic weapon capabilities. A murmur ran through the council chamber. On the diplomatic platform, Commander Rodriguez and Lieutenant Shun tried not to look too smug. You mean to tell us? Council Leader VX rumbled that we're going backwards. Adopting primitive weaponry. Actually, Remar chimed in, her tentacles moving excitedly. We're going sideways. The humans showed us something we'd forgotten: tactical flexibility. The new human-designed combat rigs were displayed in the chamber's holographic center. GDF-powered armor now with mechanical backup systems, pulse rifles with under-ed projectile launchers, ships with both graviton cannons, and good old-fashioned mass drivers, observed Carr said. Triggering a demonstration, the hologram showed the new hybrid weapons performing flawlessly in conditions that would have crippled pure energy weapons. Dust storms, solar flares, electromagnetic interference. Nothing stopped them completely, but the cost. Another council member protested manufacturing physical ammunition instead of simply charging energy cells is cheaper than losing wars. Chun cut in smoothly. Just ask the Dominion. Oh, right, you can't. They're still trying to restore power to their fleet. Captain Zarth, sporting his own new hybrid combat gear, stepped forward. Council members, I was skeptical too. Then these humans emptied their entire armory at us. Their weapons never stopped working, never needed recalibration, never failed. And now, Rodriguez added, neither will ours. The council chamber erupted in discussion among the delegates. Several military officers were already taking notes, their own recent combat experiences clearly on their minds. Qatar raised his hands for silence. There's an old human saying that Lieutenant Chun shared with me. Keep it simple, stupid. We made war too complicated, too dependent on perfect conditions. The humans reminded us that sometimes simple solutions are the best solutions. Speaking of simple solutions, Chun whispered to Rodriguez, should we tell them about the slingshot that took out their sensor array? Let them figure that one out themselves. Rodriguez whispered back, they're still processing the concept of bayonets. The Admiral pretended not to hear them, but his scales flickered with amusement. The humans have agreed to share their material science, their mechanical engineering, and their combat tactics. In return, we're sharing our energy technology, graviton manipulation, and shield designs together. He concluded, we're creating something unprecedented, weapons that combine the best of both worlds, and more importantly, warriors who understand that true advancement doesn't mean abandoning what works. As the council voted to approve the treaty, Kecker turned to Rodriguez. You knew, didn't you, the moment we showed up with our pure energy weapons, you knew exactly how to beat us. Admiral Rodriguez grinned. We've been preparing for alien invasions since before we had electricity. The fact that you actually showed up just meant we finally got to test our theories. The Admiral's scales flushed blue with embarrassment. And to think we called you primitives. Don't worry about it. Chin patted his arm. Everyone makes that mistake exactly once. Now about those plasma containment fields, we have some ideas involving rubber gaskets. Kecker watched as humans and aliens filed out of the chamber together, already deep in discussion about combining their technologies. His final report to the council had summed it up perfectly. In our rush to advance beyond physical laws, we forgot that physical laws are the most reliable weapons of all. The humans never made that mistake. They kept drilling with obsolete weapons, teaching obsolete tactics, maintaining obsolete skills. Because of that, they surpassed us. They reminded us that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And now Ranner asked, now Kecker smiled, we learned from each other. Although he added, watching Chin demonstrate a century-old lever action rifle to fascinated alien warriors, I suspect they still have a few more surprises for us after all. Rodriguez laughed. You haven't seen our space marines yet.